Hi, welcome to today's demonstration of Multiview. My name's Kurt Kiefer. I'll be showing you a few things here today. Multiview is Multiprobe's new layout viewer for FA labs. Lets engineers quickly navigate to failing devices from their CAD layouts. We're going to open a GDS layout file, establish a connection between Multiview and Multiscan, and also navigate to a failing device. Multiview is a standalone CAD viewer that can be used to drive lab precision tools such as emission microscopes, FIBs, and SEMs. Obviously, Multiview seamlessly integrates with our Multiscan 3 software and our AFP tool. Multiview leverages industry standard open access libraries for design, storage, and loading. So what this means to you is that if you have data from another program in the open access format, you will be able to load this data directly in Multiview. So we're going to begin here today by demonstrating how to import a GDS file. So open Multiview and type Control-O, or go to the File menu and select Open, and that will bring up the Multiview Library Manager dialog. So here we're going to click on Import, and we're going to choose our GDS file, and we're also going to choose a layer map file. This layer map just contains a mapping between the GDS layer numbers and the actual layer names that are associated with the technology of this design. That's going to allow us to see something a little bit more descriptive in our layer menu later. The Library Manager dialog is what we use to open and manage the designs, remove designs from the system. This import process only needs to be done once per design. Alright, so we'll wait for this design to finish importing here. Okay. Now we'll select it and hit open. So the first time this design is opened, it's going to bring in every single layer. The next time we open it, it's just going to load the last set of layers we had selected. So once our design is loaded, you can see here on the left-hand pane we have the list of layers. These are all the layers in the design. The middle has the layer name. On the right side we have the amount of data in each layer, and on the left these colored boxes represent whether the layers are enabled or not, and the color of the layer itself. This box will be hidden if the layer is turned off. Left clicking on these layers will allow us to turn them on and off, and shift left clicking on them will turn a group of them off, all the ones below where you did the shift click. Double clicking on the layer will open up the Adjust Layer Properties dialog box, and that's going to let us change the color here. We can also change the layer name. When we exit out of Multiview, this data will be saved. So there's two modes of actually interacting with the view in Multiview, the view mode and the ruler mode. You can see them there in the lower left-hand corner. When we're in view mode, the left mouse button is going to let us pan around in the view. And if we're in view mode and we do a right click and drag, that'll allow us to zoom in. We can also zoom in with the mouse scroll wheel. You can see here we pan around in this design. Our other interaction mode is the ruler mode. We select it down here in the lower left-hand corner. If we click the right mouse button, we can place a point. And if we click it again, we can place the other point. And if we look back in the lower left-hand corner here, we can measure the distance between these 2 points. You can see here we keep track of a few different metrics. Another way of measuring the distance between 2 points is also just to right-click and drag. And we'll get the same information in our lower left-hand corner here. So if we go up to the Go-To menu, we have a Go-To coordinate location section. We can choose either relative or absolute moves. Here we did a 50 micron relative move. That took us 50 microns from in X from the point where we were at. We can also go to any position within the layout to the same ends. So you probably noticed the display in the upper left-hand corner here. This is just an overview of the chip. We call this the meta view. We can drag the view box around here. See the white area represents what the main view is currently displaying. Obviously the left click function moves the box around. You can scroll with the mouse wheel. So then behind the layers list here we have the cell hierarchy. You can choose any part of the layout and select it here. That'll take you there in the main view. We're going to navigate to another part of the design here where we have or might have a failing device. And we'll demonstrate how to move the sample stage from Multiview. Multiscan 3 is, of course, our software that allows us to drive the tool and therefore our sample. So in order to drive the sample from Multiview, we will be establishing an IP connection between these two software packages. We call the interface between the two software packages CADNav. You can see here we have a new tab in Multiscan. That lists our connection status as connected. You can see the same connection status here in Multiview. For the second part of our demonstration, we will be generating some AFP images and attempting to overlay those with the CAD data. In order to do this, we're bringing our 4 probe tips together. You can see here the image from our optical microscope, the A-zoom. This is a 4-head tool we're working on. We're going to take some scans from the same area we were at in Multiview, and we'll be taking these scans in Multiscan and establishing a 3-point alignment between the two pieces of software. These 3 points allow us to account for any rotation or scaling that's different between the physical representation of the chip and the coordinate system of the chip in Multiview. You can see here now we're moving our stage to the location of the first point. We're trying to pick out something unique so that we can identify it in both Multiscan here and in Multiview. Running scan and generating an image. Our probe tip is rastering here. Takes just a short amount of time to generate these images. See if we can pick out some contacts in the meantime that we may be able to recognize. There's a quick cut to the microscope image here. You can see we're scanning on a line. So we'll try to pick this out. We'll zoom in, turn these metal lines off, and try to find some contacts. You can see we have a regular pattern, but there's a few unique features in here that we can identify. This group of 3 contacts, I think, is what we're interested in. And yep, here you can see in the scan the group of 3 contacts. So we'll be picking out one of those for our first point. We've placed the cursor on top of it in Multiscan, and we'll be placing the center of the view in Multiview in the same place. We can do that by right-clicking the point or just dragging the image around. We've actually started this a little bit out of order here. We've already picked our points, but we'll just tell Multiscan we're doing the 3-point alignment now. And so we click the 3-point alignment checkbox and then the first point. This dialog box is prompting us if we've already selected the first point. Once we have, we'll hit OK. Now we'll be moving on to our second point here. We'll also be taking these images with head C. We want to use the same head to generate all of the images, just in case of any inconsistencies in scaling between the heads. We want to have things as accurate as possible when we do this 3-point alignment, because that's really going to help us down the line when we try to accurately move the snap stage to some location. So again, just like the first point, we'll be looking for another common point between the AFP images and the CAD images. We're looking for something unique here. So let's zoom out and find this same location. It's going to be 2 metal lines down. Turn these on to get our bearings. Zoom in here. So we should be able to identify the same pattern 2 lines down, this set of 3 contacts. See here, our scan images have come in. It's actually we're a little bit over, so we'll find something else. Okay, here's another one that looks unique, just above that set. Get this centered on the screen. Move over to our CADNav tab and select the second point. As soon as we hit OK here, it should record both those locations. Mid-range, disengage our probes, and now we'll move on to our last point. This will go over along this same metal line here. The goal of this 3-point alignment is to choose 3 points that are not collinear. Basically, this means that they're in an L shape, and this allows us to take into account the sample rotation as well as any scaling vertically or horizontally. So wait for our scans to come in. So probe tips rastering here. Got a little scan data. Switch over to Multiview. Find where this next point is going to be. Turn on some metal lines again. Zoom in. It's a nice regular sample. We have the same structures on both sides of this array. So you can see here we've got our 3 points in the upper right quadrant. Pick the far left one. This is that same point that we've got on here. Get that centered. And so we got our last point all picked out here. Let's go over to the CADNav tab and we'll click that last checkbox, and then we can confirm our point selection. Now that our 3-point alignment is complete, we can switch over to Multiview. You can see here under the CADNav tool connection section that it now says aligned. We cut back out here and you can see this star cursor is new. This shows up after the 3-point alignment is done and is always there while the 3-point alignment is valid. This tells us the center position of our stage and will help guide us when we want to move the stage around from Multiview. Now we switch back to multiscan. Now we have this retrieve polygons button. So since the 3-point alignment is complete, we now have the ability to overlay our AFP images and the CAD data. By clicking the Retrieve Polygons button in the CADNav tab of Multiscan, we can bring over the CAD data directly from Multiview. Once this data has been imported, we can adjust the transparency of the AFP images to see it better. Here in the Adjust Colors and Range dialog, we now have a slider, and sliding this up and down lets us change that transparency and see the CAD data underneath the AFP images. The next thing we'll demonstrate is moving the stage from Multiview. So we'll switch here to Multiview. Get out of Multiscan. There we go. And we can zoom out, and you can see here the array where we did our 3-point alignment, and now we have this dotted box. This represents the travel range of the stage. Now in the view panel, the move button is active. Our mouse cursor is over it now, and we can actually click it, and you see our cursor on the main view turns into this crosshair. And we can right click a location at this point, and that will send a command to Multiscan to actually move the stage. You can see the position of the star cursor has changed. We'll zoom in here to get our bearings and switch over to Multiscan. We're going to scan this area that's now in the middle of the array. First we'll pull over some data from that area. This is the data from the same location. At this point, I think I'd like to note that our sample and our CAD data don't exactly line up. They're physically a little bit different, so you'll probably see that in the rest of the demo here. We can account for normal differences between the CAD data and the AFP images. You can see they're not quite on top of each other. If we hit the adjust offset button, we're given two cursors. One says AFP, that's the one we just placed there, and the other one says CAD. Get that in the right place. Now we'll move the CAD cursor to that same location on the CAD. Now if we hit done, this will hopefully line things up a little bit better. You can see it did the trick for that top level of contacts, but the bottom is still off. Again, this sample and the CAD data don't line up. So another thing we'll demonstrate here is saving data in Multiview. So we'll switch over. We have this option, Save as Bitmap in Multiview. And we can pick a location and a name here, and we can actually save this this image. We'll go to the desktop and show that. So here was the image we captured, and we can actually do the same thing here from Multiscan if we want to see the AFP image and the CAD data overlaid. Pick a name and save it here also to the desktop. Show that. So the next thing to show here is probably turning layers on and off. On the left you can see our layer list here. You turn the metal layers on and zoom out, and you can see we've got a little extra data. We turn these layers back off, turn off NWell, diff, turn off the poly. So now we just have the contact layer on, and you can see all the contacts in this array as we zoom in and zoom out. So finally we'll show here how to reset the 3-point alignment. In the CADNav tab, we can hit the Reset Alignment button and confirm yes, that's what we wanted to do. If we switch over to Multiview and look in the status, the alignment part says not aligned. And then lastly, we can disconnect the two pieces of software, confirm that, And if we look at the screen in Multiview, it'll tell us it's now again waiting for a CADNav connection.